let's break down premise one, the scoping process. So, with the lawsuit, the allegation of the lawsuit is that those three main pieces. Number one piece that's illegal with Project Skyway's environmental review is the scoping process. So, what the lawsuit says in regards to the scoping process is that the scoping EAW, that's the environmental assessment worksheet, and that is what I mentioned in that very first video. It is a worksheet. You can see it on the Minnesota Environmental Quality Board's website. It's downloadable. You can see everything that is being requested for them to fill out. That worksheet, it's a scoping worksheet, is designed again to get that full scope. What are you building? All of the pieces. And there are certain things also in that scoping level process that would trigger something called a mandatory category in the environmental review. Those mandatory categories are things that say you cannot do an AUAR, which is the environmental review that the city did. You have to do an environmental impact statement, the EIS, the highest form of environmental review that the state has. There are certain pieces in Minnesota's environmental law that say if this is marked, automatically you have to do an EIS. You cannot do an AUAR. That's one purpose of the scoping EAW that was done. So the city did this scoping process, but the allegation in the lawsuit is that what they listed on that form actually was not sufficient and that they didn't provide the full, complete description of a data center, essentially. So in the lawsuit, it says the scoping EAW does not offer a complete description of all aspects of a technology center that directly or indirectly manipulate, alter, or impact the physical or natural environment. That's the whole purpose of the scoping, is to get an idea what's going to be impacting or potentially impacting the physical or natural environment. So the lawsuit continues to say that beyond simply referencing types of industry that could be included, the project description doesn't actually provide any information about what Project Skyway is. So, what did they describe for Project Skyway? Two scenarios, remember? Scenario A was a technology center / light industrial scenario. It says, Scenario A, mixed light industrial and technology center, proposes 335 acres, 70% of the whole plot, to be developed as general light industrial, and approximately 105 acres, 22% of the plot, to be developed as a technology center. Scenario A may include a combination of office space and data center uses and associated mechanical and electrical equipment. Scenario B, technology center entirely. Development would occur in phases over several years. The AUAR, again, that's the environmental review that they used, would evaluate the potential maximum build conditions for development scenario B. Scenario B includes a combination of office space, data center uses, and associated mechanical and electrical equipment. Development scenario B, the full technology center, proposes 440 acres to be developed as a technology center. Notice they used technology center a lot and didn't actually say data center. Now, data center is mentioned as a potential use, but it's not actually identified as we're building a data center that's going to develop 440 acres out of the 482. That's very different. So that's essentially what they are getting at in the lawsuit by saying they described industries and types of industries that could be included, but they didn't actually provide a description in the full detail that they needed to for Project Skyway. It does not describe the technology center's construction and operational activities or the project component and structures specifically in detail, or the location relationships of project components or associated infrastructure required to serve the facility. It just says mechanical components. Well, what's that? So, furthermore, in the scoping allegation that it's insufficient, they also highlight that Ryan companies, their The project poser, Ryan Companies, describes the AUAR as a quote-unquote guide that simply just looks at concept level development. But here's why that's a problem, because AUARs under Minnesota environmental review law, they're not there to be a guide for ideas of an idea, for concept level development. It's actually a real environmental review that is supposed to be looking at and studying the direct, indirect, and cumulative potential effects of anticipated development. This isn't your brainstorming. This is tell us what you're building and do the full scoping process and study all of the potential impacts. You still have to do that under Minnesota state law with an AUAR, and remember that it has to be comparable to an environmental impact statement, the EIS, highest form of environmental review in the state. So they allege the city has clearly anticipated that Project Skyway is a hyperscale data center. And for that reason, your scoping process, your environmental review, has got to be specifically tied to basic details like how a data center would be cooled, where it's going to get its power, and design considerations that are related to air, noise, and light pollution, and taking the full cumulative impacts. Remember how all of those specifics combined with what's currently in existence in the community are going to affect or potentially could affect the physical natural environment, the local community, the impact on the water, on the electricity grid, etc. So lawsuit alleges they didn't do that. And so the purpose of the environmental review is faulty. And the public was also denied meaningful participation, which is part of the law that we are allowed in Minnesota. Is public comments matter. And if you're not fully describing the project, you're also violating the rights of the public to engage meaningfully in the process that's afforded to them by law. Welcome to my TED Talk.